Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Midlands Football Podcast, brought to you by Birmingham TV and Midlands Local TV here for the 2021-22 football season. I'm your host, Dom Phillips, and resident Villa boy, and I've got a few people here with me. We're just going to talk about transfers, the latest goings on, and then talk a little bit about the games, upcoming games, the Championship, the season ahead, and then a little bit about football, mental health, and Tyrone Mings news at the end. So stick with us. It's going to be a great show. I've got some great lads here with me today. Would you like to introduce yourselves? I've got Tayla.
Yeah, you're right, I'm Tayla. I'm a Blues fan.
And Josh as well. If you can. I think Josh is frozen at the moment. Josh is also a Blues fan. And then Billy.
Hi, I'm Billy. I'm a Wolves fan.
I think Josh is having some audio issues at the moment, I think, which is rather typical, but he's dropped out, so hopefully we'll be able to hear back from him later on the show. But if not, then I think it's only right, lads, that we dive into the biggest goings on, not only in the Midlands, but in the country, and that's the Jack Grealish transfer saga. Man City looking to smash their British transfer record for £100 million deal for him. It's been an ongoing transfer saga that, as a Villa fan, I can assure you, it's been a roller coaster. But coming from across the city, Taylor, what's your sort of opinion of the situation? Is the price fair? Do you think he's going to stay?
Personally, I think he's going to stay. I don't know what it is. I just think he might just stay. I'm not sure if Man City really, really want him or even need him. Because they've got the likes of Mahrez and Bernardo Silva just chilling on the bench. So again, if they sign Grealish, do they drop Foden? De Bruyne never gets dropped. But it depends if they really, really want him. If they really want him, they'll get him. But personally, I think he'll stay.
It's a sort of an interesting one, isn't it? Because as you say, we talk about like Pep's rotation, his squad depth and things like that, and you've got such brilliant players in your squad, and he's never spent anywhere near this amount of money on a player before. So, what is the need for it? And Billy, do you think City need a player like Grealish? Because we talk about how they've got Silva and Mahrez and Sterling and Foden and great players. I would say that Grealish offers something different, so I can see why they'd want to sign him. But for £100 million, do you not think they could be spending that money, even though they're supposed to be signing them both together, which I personally doubt is possible, on someone like Harry Kane to fill the void that Sergio Aguero left?
I don't think City necessarily need Grealish with all the attacking power they've got, but I think it's a case of wanting to freshen up the attack before it goes stale. Obviously, this season, Raheem Sterling's not been in his best form, and it might be in the back of Pep's mind that he needs to bring in some younger, fresher legs just to ensure that they can stay at the top before they have another year like they did a couple of years back where Liverpool won the league by 20, 30 points. But I think it also, if City do want to get Harry Kane rather than Grealish, then there's no chance of Grealish going to City because they're not going to be able to spend 200 plus million on two players in the same window.
No, it ain't possible, and it defies all of the previous transfer policy from City. But coming at it from a Villa perspective now, obviously, I don't know how much you've sort of been keeping up with Villa's window yourself. Obviously, it was really busy early on when we signed Emiliano Buendia from Norwich, a player that we've liked for a long time, who obviously, you'll have seen him last season in the Championship. Taylor is a fantastic player.
I think he was voted player of the season in the Championship, something like that.
Yeah. He was. Yeah. He won some award like that, didn't he? He was a brilliant player. And then obviously we've got Ashley Young back, which is a bit of a nice little memory lane thing. But he's even though he's 36 years old, he's in decent nick. And so I'm excited to see where he fits into the squad. And obviously now with Leon Bailey signing, I don't know, Billy, if you had any thoughts on Leon Bailey yourself, because obviously he's been linked with the Premier League move many times before, so you're probably aware of him from obviously coming from Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. What do you make of him?
I've seen him a few times when I've watched Leverkusen on TV, and he does look very exciting, very quick, good on the ball, and I think it's a great signing for Villa, even if Grealish does go. Replacing him with two quality wingers in Buendia and Bailey, it kind of takes that pressure off what Grealish had of sort of being the star man and things having to go through him, having two outlets on either side. It can really help Villa going forward.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, Tyler? I think, when you have a player of Grealish's quality, it's sort of impossible to replace. But would you agree with Billy there? I would as well. That if you have one I think he's world class for example. So let's say you have one world class player and you've got to replace him with 2 or 3 great players. When Villa have lost in the past, Downing, Milner, Barry, Young, we replaced them with 5 or 6 really average players, like sort of how Tottenham did before with Gareth Bale. And do you think Bailey, Buendia, and even other links like Abraham and Twanzebe, Cantwell, are these the kinds of players that Villa should be targeting to sort of fill the void Grealish would leave, should he actually leave?
Yeah, 100%. If Grealish does stay, then you still got them 2 players. Your attack would be amazing, especially if you do sign someone like Tammy Abraham or another decent striker. But even then, you still got Ollie Watkins. So them 3 providing Ollie Watkins a ball will be brilliant. But not just that, Grealish does get injured quite a lot as well.
He does.
So if like last season, I think he missed about a month, maybe a month and a half or whatever. If you had a Buendia or a Bailey that can fill in his position, you wouldn't. Of course, you'd miss him because he wouldn't be the same player. But at least you wouldn't have to jeopardise another position, like maybe a drop in, I don't know, McGinn or someone like that.
Yeah. No, it's true because Grealish has been. Last season he was supposed to be out for like a couple of weeks. Ended up being out for like 3 months. Every single season for the last few seasons, he's missed a couple of months through injury. It's his shin. He always has an injury in his shin that just never goes away. It's a nightmare. And last season you could see how he suffered without him. And I think even if we do lose him, we've got other options to replace him. And as you say, if he gets injured and things like that, then I think we're cooking to have, as you say, a really brilliant attack. I think if we get someone like James Ward-Prowse into the midfield, had a bit of steel, set piece specialty as well, then I think Villa could be a real force next season. But moving on to other transfers now, obviously Wolves have had a really interesting transfer window, I'd say, with Francisco Trincao, and then recently Mosquera's joined as well, the young centre-back. So, Billy, what have you made of Wolves' business so far this summer? Do you think there's more that needs to be done?
Yeah, there's definitely more that needs to be done. We were getting a lot of deals done early. I think Mosquera come in about 2 months ago or so now. And then Trinco, Ait Nouri and Jose Sarr seem to come in early stages of pre-season. But the squad is still nowhere near deep enough. I think the main thing Wolves fans are crying out for is a new centre mid, because we've only got 4 centre mids really who are up to the task of playing Premier League football week in, week out. And out of those 4, it's kind of half expected that Ruben Neves will leave in a big money move. Joe Moutinho, he's 34 now. Morgan Gibbs-White, he's never really played consistently. And as well as that, we've got a very big injury crisis at centre-half at the minute, with Bolly and Mosquera out with hamstring injuries. So I think centre-half and a central midfielder are definitely needed before the end of the month.
No, I'd agree, and I think Neves is an unbelievable player. I think him and Neto especially, obviously Jimenez as well. Even taking into account his injury, I think some of the best players that the Midlands has to offer. And what kind of players? Any names that you could think of who could fill the void of the injured centre halves or fill the void of the possibly Arsenal departing Ruben Neves, for example?
Well, it's been pretty quiet recently. There's not been much transfer news coming out. Palhinha, the lad who was with Portugal at the Euros, he's been sort of quietly linked with us, but I think Sporting are looking for about 60 million for him, and there's no chance he'll be able to afford that. It's a bit tight at the minute, because it seems like Bruno Lage isn't being fully backed by the board, with not much money available. It's a bit of a sell to buy policy right now, so it could be a bit of a struggle until the end of the window.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves have been. I know that Wolves is Fosun owners have got a reputation of being quite rich, but I think they've been struggling for a little while, and owners that have been struggling can turn it around, and there's a bit of a feel good factor returning to Birmingham City now. I'm going to turn that little segue into Tayla. Obviously, Birmingham City have been very active in the transfer market. Who's been coming in? What's your opinion? What's going on?
To be fair, I'm liking the transfers that Bowyer's brought in. It feels like he's brought in players that he knows, but he also knows that they're going to do the job that he's asking for. Like when Karanka left and he come in, Duke wasn't playing. He put Duke on, whipped the balls in the box, score headers. He's brought in 2 wingers, and you're looking at Jordan Graham, I think he got 12 assists last season in League One. Most of them were all crosses from the flank, so that's perfect for Duke. Again, we brought in Chung, young lad from Man United. I've heard loads of good things about him, but now let's see if he can do it in the Championship, where it's obviously everyone knows it's a hard league, especially for youngsters. And then again, he's mopped up the midfield, brought in Ryan Woods, something different to what we normally have. Someone a bit who can play the ball a little bit, who's not afraid to dig into a tackle. Because normally what we'd have, say Sunjic or Gary Gardner, one's good at passing, one's not so good at defending, and it's just a mixed match. It's not working. So I think he's really mopped up well with the transfers, and even the transfers that he's sent out. Some of the deadwood, which we need to get rid of a while, he's got rid of them, and he's used the money wisely with little what we've got.
I think he's done a really good job. I think obviously you got Bowyer from Charlton, I believe it was, where he had a really limited budget. The ball was difficult to work with, and he's come to Birmingham in a similar situation a lot of ways, and he's really made it work over the course of the transfer market. Obviously at the back end of last season when he took over at Karanka, he stabilised, as you said. So how much do you rate Bowyer? Do you think he's obviously back end of last season? Do you think he's got a good transfer market in? Is there anyone else you'd want to see come in? Any positions like the defence or anything like that?
To be fair, I think he's brought in good players for good squad depth. The only position we're really lacking in is right back. I think we've only got one first team right back, and that's Colin. I think our next one's in the under 23s, probably played one game for the first team. So I'm hoping he brings in a right back, but we haven't been linked to one, so I'm not quite sure there. And to be fair, we've got a young lad from Wolves, Deon Sanderson? I don't know too much about him. I heard he's really good, but I don't know if he can play right back. But I imagine he might be a user's cover there. But you'll have to speak about that, Billy, if he's any good or not.
When Sanderson was at Wolves, when we played the 5-back, he was actually playing as a right wing back, and I always thought he had the build of a centre half. He's a bit thin, but he's about 6'2", I believe. And then he went out on loan to Cardiff, and he was playing right back towards the end of the 1920 season in the Championship. Last season he was at Sunderland and he dropped down as a centre half, but both Cardiff and Sunderland fans have been raving about him. I think he got Young Player of the Year last season at Sunderland, so I think that's a very good signing.
Okay, yeah. So maybe that's what Bowyer's thinking, having someone like him who can play centre half and right back. I think that's what he's done with a lot of the transfers. He's got players who can play in other roles. So it'll be interesting to see if he brings anyone else. But I think he most likely would be outgoings next.
I think it's really handy to have players like that who can play both positions. I mean, we've got a few at Villa with like Courtney Halls and Tyrone Mings who played left back. Gilles Bears can play at right back and centre back. And I think having players who can play multiple positions, it means if there's an injury crisis, you're more than likely to have someone who can sort of cover you. And I think one of the problems that Wolves had in the past, for example, was that they had a small squad, and that's why a lot of fans want to see more players coming in. But moving off of sort of transfers now and talking more in general in terms of the season ahead, obviously we've got games at the weekend for yourself, Taylor. I mean, for Villa, it's a pre-season friendly against Sevilla, but I mean, that doesn't really deserve much of a mention because it's a friendly. But I'm thinking something that I'm really curious about is I've heard sort of conflicting reports because I live in a predominantly Wolves area, and some of my mates are split. They think they can't decide whether they like Lage or not. And Billy, what's your impressions of Bruno Lage so far? Obviously, taking over from Nuno, did a really good job for a long time there. How has he settled in at Wolves?
I think he has the right ideas. He's trying to play on the front foot with a lot of the ball, short, fast passing in the final third, and without the ball, high press, forcing the opposition into a mistake. But I think it's just such a drastic change in a short space of time from how we played under Nuno that we've not really got the mentality or the players to actually carry it out as of yet. I think we need definitely another energetic centre mid, because we played a 4-4-2 in a friendly a couple of weeks back with Neves and Moutinho as the midfield two, and they just looked out of position a lot, didn't have the legs for it, getting caught out a bit. I think Morgan Gibbs-White has probably shone the most, to be fair, in those midfield roles. He's been buzzing around the final third the whole time. But Bruno switching between a 4 and a 5 at the back, and it's looking like he's going to play a 5 at the back, playing that more often now. So we'll have to wait and see how it does in a competitive game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with friendlies, isn't it? Is it's all dependent because I mean we beat Leipzig 3-1 the season before, and then we nearly went down, and then we lost to Stoke the one week, and then we beat Bristol City the next. Like friendlies are really subjective; they're quite experimental. And as you say, I think you sort of got to judge Lage over the course of a season and give him time with the squad to get them used to how he wants to play. Because as you say, it sounds like it's the opposite of how Nuno was playing. But moving quickly now, Taylor, it's the opening weekend on Saturday for you. We've just gone to the friendly to watch, quite peaceful, but it's a bit of stress over Blues. You're playing Sheffield United as well, which isn't exactly an easy opening fixture, I'd say. But how are you feeling ahead of it?
I feel a lot more positive than last season. I don't know why. Everyone was happy when Crank could come in. I wasn't, to be fair. He was out of the game for 3 years. I just weren't expecting him to do good things. But now I've seen what Lee Bowyer can do off the back of last season and the mess that we was in and how he managed to get us out of it. I think we'll do all right this season. I'm not too sure about this weekend. I'm gonna be honest. I've heard we've got quite a few injuries, especially with some of the new lads. So I don't know if he's going to be his best starting 11. He'll be playing on Saturday night. But I'm hoping we can get a positive result. I'll be happy with the draw. Start off the season with a draw away at Sheffield. That'll be a good result. But yeah, I'm a lot more positive. I don't think we'll lose. I think we'll win or draw. I don't think we'll lose.
I think away at Sheffield is sort of a blessing in disguise because I know they've come down, but they didn't exactly come down with much sort of, style. And the transfers have been quite quiet, as I understand it. They've got Sander Berge, though. He's far too good to play in the Championship.
Champions League player.
He is. Sander Berge is a brilliant player. I'd do anything to have him down the Villa, to be honest. But, yeah, he's a brilliant player. They've got a couple of good players, and obviously they've got Jokanovic now as the manager, isn't he? And he took Fulham up when they beat us in the playoff final, I believe, which wasn't my finest hour as a Villa fan. I didn't enjoy that game, but I think he'll probably do a decent job there. And as you say, I think Saturday night away from home, I think it's a big occasion. As you say, I think it's one where for the Blues they could sort of turn it on, turn up, and start the season off on a high note with an unthinkable away victory, even just a really good, solid point. So overall, then for the season, how do you reckon you're going to get on, Taylor? I know it's a big question to ask.
Yeah. I think for the last 4 years, I think we've been 20th. So if we get 16th, I'll be happy this season. But I think we're going to do a lot better than that. I'm hoping top half of the table, maybe an 8th, maybe sneak a playoffs, but I doubt we'll sneak playoffs. So if he gets us top half, maybe even 13th or anything like that, I'll be happy with it, and then he can prove for the next season.
I was thinking slap bang in the centre in the table as well. And as you say, I think a bit of stability at the club, moving up, and a bit of progression is sort of the foundation that you need to move up. Billy, do you have any thoughts about Blues next season? Where you think they might finish? You sort of believe in a bit of the Bowyer hype?
I think that the transfers they've brought in have definitely improved the squad. I think, like you two said, a mid-table finish would be a good finish because you're not going to go from the relegation fight straight to challenging for the title. So, slow progressions, and maybe in a couple of seasons' time, you'll be challenging those playoff spots. I think every Blues fan would take that.
Well, to be fair, people didn't think Barnsley was going to get playoffs last season when they nearly got relegated. So it's the Championship. Anything can happen. Peterborough could win the league. We don't know. So it is what it is.
Honestly, the Championship's the craziest league. I mean, I think Wolves' promoted side were probably one of the best, if not the best side I've ever seen in the Championship.
Yeah, that was unbelievable that year.
That was great. And I remember when we finished in the middle of the table, and then we nearly went down, and then Codger scored a bunch of goals, and we finished in the middle, and then we nearly went up, and we didn't. It's a chaotic league, the Championship. A team that does really well one year tends to do really badly the next, and I wonder if you'll be able to sort of capitalise off of that sort of reverb. But Billy, now moving on to Wolves, I know you sort of touched on it a little bit, but how do you feel about the next season? Where would you be if you're Lage? Where are you targeting to finish next season?
I think it was we finished 14th last season, so I think I'm not expecting a massive progression, maybe to about that little 10th to 12th region, but I think we definitely need a few more signings to come through the door to challenge the top half. I think if not, a small injury crisis could really knock us back. I think you seen it last season around Christmas time. We had about 5 players out with injury, and we was having a bunch of academy lads and 2 goalkeepers on the bench, and we've got put right into that relegation fight. So I think as long as players can stay fit, I think a mid-table finish is possible.
No, I'd agree. I mean, one of the things that Nuno is very famous for is having like some of the best medical staff in, I don't know if you've actually still got them at the club. I don't know if they actually left with Nuno.
I think we had this one with Phil Hayward, and he left to LA Galaxy, and as soon as he left, the injury crisis kicked in.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, if you're losing hold of some of that medical staff, I think, as you say, an injury crisis could sort of mess them up. I mean, Taylor, you've been in the Premier League. You know how ruthless it is. Am I alone in worrying that I genuinely think if Wolves don't click into gear and if a couple of injuries go wrong, you could easily be looking at a relegation fight.
Yeah, 100%.
A little bit.
Yeah, because I think a lot of teams haven't realised what Wolves, like the Wolves squad is. Because like you said earlier, the squad depth isn't really there. I know you've got a couple of young lads, but are the young lads ready to perform in the Premier League consistently? If they can hit the ground running, then maybe. But like you said, if one injury and you got to put someone who's not comfortable in that position, confidence and run of games, and you see how quickly it happens. Blues done it one year. We lost a few games, and next thing you know, you're relegated. It happens.
Yeah. It always tends to be quite marginal down at the bottom of the table, doesn't it? You might have 1 or 2 teams that are comfortably down, but usually on the last day, you're still in it right till the end. And if all it takes is a couple of things to go wrong dead quick, and that's it. And that's what nearly happened to us the other season. But I think next season we're going to do a lot better than we did the season before. I think it's going to be another season of progression for us. I think I'd be looking, if Grealish stays, top 6 probably. If we sign someone like James Ward-Prowse, then I think the sky's the limit, because I think we've got a fantastic attacking array of talent to cover us when Grealish has an off game or when Grealish is injured. I think we've got the defence proved itself last season with an unbelievable season, and I think just adding a bit of steam into that midfield, sorting out the set pieces and getting the tactics spot on, and I think Villa could really fly next season. But Billy, do you share in my optimism? I mean, especially if Grealish leaves, do you think Villa might have a bit of a stalemate next season, bit stale?
I think if you can keep hold of Grealish, that front 4 of Watkins, Grealish, Buendia and Bailey could be really exciting. But I think it's a similar case to Wolves, where a couple of injuries to first team players for Villa, and then there's that drop off in quality to the reserves, and it could really knock us about. I think it happened last season. You was challenging for, was it top 6, and then Grealish got injured and you dropped a couple of places. But I think on the whole it'll be a calm season for you. There'll be no panicking, clear of the relegation fight. I think it should be a top half finish minimum, really.
Yeah, I think that's probably a bit more. That's a good thing to say. I think it's probably a little bit more balanced than mine was. Tyler, what do you think for Villa? Do you think a good season? Do you think?
Yeah, I think you'll have a good season. Well, I don't think it depends on Jack Grealish, because I think the 2 signings you brought in are good enough to replace him. But if Grealish does stay, like you said, I do think a top half finish, maybe 10, you could push for Europa League. There's a good chance you can push for Europa League, but it also depends on the other teams. West Ham have improved. Leicester keep getting better every year. So it just depends. As long as you keep beating them teams that are in and around you, like West Ham, your Leicesters, then I think you could push for Europa League, yeah.
No, I'd agree. I think, when you've got other clubs, like, we're not the only club who are pushing to get into those positions, are we? And if we can sort of, beat them a bit more consistently and make sure we don't drop silly points and nick a few points from the top teams, then I think that's the only way we're really going to fight for Europe. But I definitely think I'm quite confident in that. And I think a big part of Villa's success has been, a lot of the signings that we've made, obviously, because the squad's completely changed. But one that sort of stuck around for a little bit now, it's quite weird to say, is Tyrone Mings. And I wanted to sort of end the podcast on sort of a different note, because obviously we've talked about the seasons ahead, but Tyrone Mings recently came out and sort of admitted that in the advance to the, I can't remember which game it was, it might have been Croatia in the Euros, he had to seek therapy. Obviously, he's someone who's opened up about his mental health in the past, and when he was playing for Bournemouth and his injury crises, for example. But, he said that I think the phrase that got me is when he said, when 90 to 95% of your own fans don't back you, there's no worse feeling in the world. He said something like that. And I think it's really inspiring to see sort of a footballer who talks about these things so openly. But, Taylor, what do you think about like sort of football and mental health? I mean, Tyrone Mings is like a big ambassador for that kind of thing. And what do you think about his comments? What do you think it says about fan culture as well?
Yeah, like everyone knows, everyone's got them fans in their club that 1 minute they love the player, does one bad pass, does like last year, Mings made a few mistakes that led to goals. I don't know any Villa fans on Twitter that much, but I'd imagine he'd have got loads of abuse on Twitter because of them goals.
Yeah.
And recently, you've seen all the racial abuse stuff as well, which is horrendous. So for him to say that, and hopefully the fans pick up on it, just give him a bit of pressure, because he must feel that pressure every time he steps on the football pitch now. That if he makes one mistake, the fans are on him constantly. Like you said, 90% or whatever fans don't back him. He must be terrified to play on the pitch sometimes. So now that he's come out and said it, hopefully the fans come back off it, and hopefully more players come out and start talking, which is what we need in the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think mental health is something that's sort of quite hushed up in like men's football and things like that. So to see players sort of coming out and talking about it is really it's refreshing. And Billy, obviously we talk about, me and Taylor was just saying about like social media abuse, and we saw that with Saka, Sancho, and Rashford after the Euros final, for example, the disgusting racial abuse that they received. What do you think needs to be done about that? And not just regulating on social media, perhaps, but also people shouting things in the stand and abuse that sort of crosses the line from criticism or constructive criticism or balanced criticism of a player and just becomes outright aggression and abuse.
Yeah, there's definitely a line that's always crossed with some people, because everyone's quick to vent frustration at a misplaced pass, but as soon as the frustration becomes personal, then that's gone too far. I think it's easier to regulate in the ground, as you can pull someone up on it. You've got the stewards and the police if there's racial abuse. But social media is a difficult one, because it could be anyone behind the screen giving that abuse out. But I think it is refreshing that it's so in the mainstream media now when it occurs. Obviously, we don't want those headlines, but the fact that people are picking up on it and being reported, footballers are actually sharing it rather than bottling it up. It's a first step, but there are still lots more that need to be taken.
No, I'd agree completely, and I think it's on that sort of somber, but also I think it's an optimistic note, because it is the fact that a player's come out and talked about these kinds of things, and it's the fact that hopefully more things can be done to address these in the future, and hopefully we can be looking forward to a season where things can change in football, and not just in terms of players' fortunes and in terms of how people are acting, but how clubs are getting on as well. And that is going to be, with that in mind, a season preview podcast. I think the Midlands Football Podcast will be coming in more regularly now. But thank you to Tayla and Billy for joining me. We'll have more guests on in future. I might be swapping out as well, so you'll see plenty of new faces whenever this is on. Make sure to follow everyone's Twitters the ats are on the screen, so find it yourselves. And then obviously make sure to follow all the Midlands TV accounts. I think it's BM Local TV on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube, like it all, comment on it all. Let's grow up our local TV station. And thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you to Tayla and Billy for joining me, and we'll see you in another podcast. Thank you.